Morning. What's up? Walking along a marsh here, and I wanted to just to show you, guys. They ask me all the time, why aren't I finding any beds? Because you're probably on a straight transition with a little. You might find a point along a transition. It'll be straight, and then you'll hit a point or a little finger. Well, there's not going to be a bed on every one of them. There's not going to be buck beds everywhere there is. The buck wants it to be super thick. So, like, I'll show you, I'll turn the camera around in a minute and show you, like, here's a really good transition that actually has a point, but there's no bedding in here because it's not thick enough for, especially an older buck. They're just not going to feel comfortable or hidden, if that makes sense. So, check this out. Now, here's this transition, and guys will look under these trees, and there's a little micro point here that comes out. It's kind of hard to see, but it does, and then it comes back in this way and then shoots that way. But like, it's just not thick enough under there, in my opinion, for anything that's like I'm after for bedding. Does will bed along here, I'm sure. There's probably so many beds. You probably can't even count them along these transitions, but I doubt very much on a transition like this, even with a little point or something like that, jetting out into that marsh, there'll be buck bedding. It's just not that thick. I'm going to try to find an example of a good one that would be thick enough for a buck to travel or a bed in, excuse me. This transition, it's pretty open, so there's not much bedding, but once you get on this corner, it's pretty thick, man. You can see all this briars. There's stuff they can get under. Let's see if there's any buck beds in there, and there might not be. There might not be any advantage that a buck gets bedding here, so there might not be some bedding in here. Not all points, fingers, bowls, and everything have buck bedding. That's just how it is. You see how super thick this is right here, this whole corner. But yet, they can come back in here and bed down and still watch. I always get down to a deer's level and look out. See how they're looking at that opening? Nothing can get over to them here. Nothing can get over here, to them over here. Wind over their back, I can smell, and still laying this thick stuff and watch these open areas. This is how a lot of guys are getting caught and they're not even realizing it. Now, I want to say again, you're even in the marsh areas and even in the swamp areas, in where I live and where I hunt, you're still probably not going to find these big beat down established beds down to the mud unless you're out in the frag or right on the edge of that water, where the frag meets the up top and it's a little muddy. Here's a more drier bed up in the drier areas. You're gonna see it's an impact bed, like it's beat down a little bit, but it's not down to the mud. It's a indentation and pressed leaves. So here's another two examples. Now here's more wet mud dead. The soil's wet. It gets beat down, and it is well established. Just look at the hair in it. So keep your eye out for these ones, man. You can see them beds aren't real established and not beat down, like I said. And, you're not going to find that all the time. So what I want people to do this year is take a little bit different approach and go find areas instead of buck beds. Go find the areas, get on Google Earth, look for corners, points, bowls, stuff like that. Then find the areas, put your boots on, go out there and look in the areas. And if you find buck beds, that's fine. And that's good. That's just a plus. But I want people that don't have a lot of time to do this to start looking at areas rather than beds. And if you look at the areas, you're going to start finding beds. And you're going to start finding a bunch of beds in a small area. A corner, finger, point, a bowl, blah, blah, blah. So remember that. Guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate your support. And as usual, subscribe and like to the Buck Sack. Peace.